Welcome to the world of science fiction and forgotten worlds. Alien Universe. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and never miss a new movies and story from this channel. The creature was still breathing when the scanner said it was already dead. That was the first thing that made Daniel stop. On a battlefield where even human soldiers froze solid within minutes, nothing alive should have been moving under that much ice. But the thermal screen showed a faint pulse, slow and stubborn, like a heart that refused to accept the end. Daniel told himself it was just a glitch. He told himself to walk away. Medics were not sent to this frozen wasteland to save enemies. They were sent to recover their own and leave the rest for the snow. Still, his boots turned toward the signal before his mind agreed. Half of the body was buried under crystal blue ice, twisted in a way that made it look less like a living thing and more like a broken statue. The armor was not metal, not cloth, but something grown, smooth and pale like bone. Long black fractures ran across it, as if the cold itself had tried to crush whatever was inside. Daniel's breath fogged inside his mask, while the wind screamed across the empty plain. He kept expecting the thing to move suddenly, to attack, to prove every warning he had ever heard about the alien species was true. Monsters, killers, unfeeling. That was the word Command used. Unfeeling. He knelt anyway. The ice had formed around the creature's face, leaving only one side visible. Its skin was gray, but not dead gray. There was a faint shimmer under it, like light trapped beneath glass. Its eyes were closed, and something about the shape of them made his chest tighten. Not fear, not exactly. Recognition? No, that was impossible. He had never seen one this close before. His squad was already moving back toward the transport, their voices sharp in his earpiece, telling him to fall back before the storm closed in. He muted them. The scanner beeped again. The pulse was weaker now. Just a body, he whispered to himself, forcing his gloves to move. Confirm death and leave. That was protocol. That was safe. He brushed ice away from the creature's neck, searching for any sign of a vital point. The skin was warm. Warm in a place where steel. Shattered from the cold. His hand froze in the air. That was not possible. The creature's chest moved. A slow, painful rise, followed by a long pause, then a broken exhale that turned into frost between them. Every story he had heard rushed into his head at once, every report of alien. Ambushes, every image of soldiers torn apart by things that did not hesitate. His hand went to the sidearm at his hip, fingers shaking. This was the moment he had trained for. If it moved, if it opened its eyes, he was supposed to fire. But it did not attack. It trembled. Not like a predator preparing to strike, but like a patient dying on a hospital bed, fighting for one more breath. The sound it made was not a roar. It was a weak, uneven gasp that reminded him of the children he had treated during the first evacuation on Mars. That memory hit him so hard he almost dropped the scanner. Stop thinking, he muttered, angry at himself. It's not human. Another breath left the creature, thinner this time, and something inside Daniel broke. Medics did not choose who deserved to live. That was the first rule they taught you before you even touched a medkit. Life was life. Wounds were wounds. Blood was blood, no matter the color. His hands were already opening the thermal pack before he realized he had made a decision. I'm not saving you, he said, though he was already pressing the heat pad against the fractured armor. I'm just stabilizing. The armor split slightly under the warmth, revealing a deep wound beneath, dark fluid frozen along the edges. Not red, but not the strange glowing colors he expected either. Just dark, thick and still. He injected a universal coagulant, not knowing if it would work, not knowing if he was wasting supplies his own people might need. The wind howled louder, warning him that time was running out. The creature's fingers twitched. Long, thin, clawed, but they did not reach for him. They curled weakly against the ice, like someone trying to hold on to the ground to avoid being pulled away. Daniel swallowed. "You're dying," he said softly, the words fogging the air between them. "You don't even know I'm here." The eyes opened. They were not the burning, animal eyes he expected. They were deep, reflective, almost silver, filled with pain and something else he could not name. Awareness. Fear. He froze, every instinct screaming at him to pull the weapon, to end it before it ended him. The creature looked straight at him, not at his suit, not at the weapon, but at his face behind the visor. Then its cracked lips moved. Communication was impossible. Translation had failed. Their sounds were nothing like language. That was what he had been told, but he heard it clearly, carried on a weak breath that almost vanished in the storm. Daniel. The sound of his own name coming from that dying alien mouth felt like the ground had disappeared beneath him. His heart stopped, his mind went blank, and for a moment he forgot the cold, the war, the orders, everything. There was only the impossible reality in front of him. He had never told anyone his name on this mission. His squad called him medic. Command used his number. The helmet did not display personal IDs outside friendly networks. There was no way this creature could know who he was. His hand shook so badly the medkit slipped into the snow. "How?" he whispered, stepping back, every thought colliding inside his head. "How do you know my name?" The creature's eyes stayed locked on his, filled with a desperate urgency, as if it was trying to hold on to him with nothing but that gaze. Its lips moved again, slower now, weaker, the voice barely more than a breath. "Help me." Behind him, the transport engines roared to life, the final call for evacuation, crackling through his earpiece. The storm wall was seconds away. If he did not leave now, he would be trapped here, frozen alongside the thing he was never supposed to touch. In front of him lay an enemy, a monster, a dying alien that somehow knew his name. And for the first time since the war began, Daniel did not know who the real enemy was. Daniel's first instinct was to run. Training screamed at him to retreat, to survive, to report the anomaly and let command handle it. But his legs refused to move. The alien's eyes were still fixed on him, not with threat, but with a quiet. He had seen that look in wounded soldiers who knew they would not make it to the evacuation ship. He had seen it in civilians trapped under rubble, reaching for a hand that might not come. That look did not belong to a monster. "Say that again," he whispered, his voice shaking. "How do you know my name?" The creature's breathing grew uneven, frost foaming over its lips with every weak exhale. One trembling hand lifted slightly, not toward. The word was broken, imperfect, but clear enough. Daniel's heart pounded harder. This was impossible. Not just the language, but the meaning. It understood its condition. It was asking for help, not attacking, not threatening. Storm impact in 60 seconds. He ignored it. His hands moved quickly now, driven by instinct stronger than fear. He activated another thermal pack and pressed it gently along the creature's side, careful not to touch the exposed wound. "Stay with me," he said automatically, the same words he used on human patients. "Don't close your eyes." The creature blinked slowly, as if obeying him took all the strength it had left. A girl with silver-gray eyes gripping his hand, whispering his name, while machines beeped around her. He shook his head hard, trying to push the image away. That was impossible. That girl had died during the first wave of the war, before anyone even knew what the aliens looked like. The storm hit into his back like a physical wall, nearly knocking him forward. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. His squad's transport engines faded into the distance, swallowed by the wind. He was alone now, stranded in a white void with the enemy he was supposed to fear. "You're going to get me killed," he muttered, though his hands kept working, sealing what wounds he could, injecting small doses of stabilizers, with no idea if they would help or harm. The creature made a faint sound, something like a weak exhale that almost resembled a laugh. It said again, clearer this time, though the voice was still fragile, "Not enemy." The words hit him harder than the cold. Not enemy. Every report, every command briefing, every fallen soldier said otherwise. This war had been built on the certainty that the aliens were incapable of empathy, incapable of communication, incapable of anything but destruction. "Then what are you?" he asked before he could stop himself. The alien's eyes softened, and for a moment the pain inside them was replaced by something else, something almost human. "Lost," it whispered. A deep rumble echoed beneath. The ice, low and distant, but growing. Daniel looked up, scanning the white horizon. Shapes moved within the storm, large and fast. His scanner flickered with multiple approaching heat signatures, far stronger than the weak pulse in front of. If those were alien recovery hunters, they would not care that he had tried to help. They would see a human kneeling over one of their own and assume the worst. Either way, he was dead. Back inside with shaking hands. "Can you move?" Its body convulsed slightly, armor cracking further, a weak sound escaping its throat. It could not even lift itself from the ice. The rumble grew louder. The shapes in the storm were closer now. Daniel made a decision he knew he could never undo. The armor was heavier than it looked, cold and slick beneath his gloves. "If you attack me, I swear." The alien's hand closed weakly around his wrist. Not a grip of force, but a fragile hold, like someone afraid of being left behind. "Trust," it breathed. The word shattered the last of his hesitation. The motion revealed the full extent of its injuries, long fractures running across its back, one limb bent at an unnatural angle. It should have screamed. It should have fought. Instead, it remained limp against him, conserving what little strength it had. The approaching heat signatures split into two groups, circling. They were hunting. Daniel dragged the alien toward a collapsed ridge of ice nearby, using the storm as cover. His muscles burned, his oxygen warning blinking red inside his visor. Every step felt slower than the last. "Why me?" he gasped. "Why say my name?" The alien's head rested against his shoulder, its voice barely audible over the wind. "Because you promised." Daniel froze mid-step. Promised what? But the creature did not answer. Its eyes had closed again, its breathing dangerously shallow. The hunting signatures were almost on top of them now, shadows moving through the storm. And Daniel realized, with a chill far deeper than the freezing wind, that somewhere in his past was a promise he did not remember making. Daniel pulled the alien deeper behind the shattered ridge, pressing both of them into a hollow carved by old explosions. The wind howled over the opening, masking their heat signature for now, but his scanner showed the hunters moving in precise circles. They were not searching randomly. They were tracking. His oxygen dropped another level. 15 minutes, maybe. He injected a small stimulant in the alien's arm, hoping its biology would not reject it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creature's eyes opened halfway, unfocused but aware. "You said I promised," Daniel whispered. "When? I've never seen you before." The alien studied his face behind the visor, as if looking past the glass, past the suit, into something deeper. Its expression carried a strange sadness. Before. A research station, orbiting a blue planet. A medical bay filled with soft white light. A figure lying on a table, smaller than the creature beside him now, its armor not yet grown, its eyes wide with fear. He saw his own hands, younger, without combat gloves, adjusting a scanner while speaking gently. "You're safe," he heard himself say in the memory. "I won't let them hurt you." The vision vanished, leaving him gasping in the frozen present. "That's impossible," he muttered. "I was never stationed off-world before the war." Daniel's mind reeled. Experimental, used only in extreme intelligence operations. He had never volunteered for anything like that, had he? There were gaps in his early service record, years marked only as medical training deployment. Another rumble shook the ice. One of the hunters passed close overhead, its silhouette visible through the storm, massive and angular. A scanning. Beam swept across the ridge. Daniel whispered. "For us," the alien corrected softly. He looked down at it. "Why would your own kind hunt you?" Its silver eyes closed briefly, pain crossing its face. "Because I am not soldier. I am voice," it said. "I was meant to speak with humans, to stop war." Below, a diplomat, the alien nodded faintly. "You saved me," when both sides wanted silence. Another fragment of memory pushed through the fog in his mind. Alarms. Armed human officers storming a lab. Scientists shouting. The small alien clinging to his arm while he argued with command over comms. "She's not a weapon." He heard. His own voice echo. "She's trying to communicate." Then darkness. "They erased it," he whispered, horror spreading through him. "They erased you from my mind." The alien's gaze held his, filled not with anger, but with a quiet acceptance. "You kept promise anyway," it said. "You helped." Even without memory, the scanner suddenly screamed a warning. One of the hunters had locked onto a residual. Heat trace. It was turning back toward them. Daniel's pulse spiked. "We have to move, now." He tried to lift the alien again, but his strength was fading, his oxygen nearly gone. The alien said, its voice clearer for the first time, "If they take me, war continues. And if they catch me helping you, I'm dead," he replied. Its hand reached up, touching the front of his visor, right where his eyes were. "You are more than soldier," it said. "You are healer. That is why I spoke your name." The hunters. Shadow loomed over the ridge dot, and for the second time on that frozen battlefield, Daniel had to choose between the orders that defined his life and the promise he did not remember making. The hunter dropped onto the ridge with a thunderous impact, ice shattering around its blade-like limbs. Its scanning beam cut through the hollow, bathing Daniel and the alien in harsh blue light. There was no time to run, no time to hide. Daniel reached for his sidearm, knowing it would do nothing against a machine. Built to tear through armored tanks. The alien did something unexpected. It pulled itself upright. A wave of faint silver light spread across its cracked armor. Not bright, not violent, but steady, like a heartbeat made visible. The hunter froze mid-step, its scanning beam flickering as if confused. "You said you are not a soldier," Daniel whispered. "I am not." The alien replied, its voice stronger now. "I am command." Before he could understand, the ground beneath the hunter trembled. From the storm emerged more shapes, dozens of them, surrounding the ridge in a perfect circle. Not attacking. Kneeling. Every hunter unit lowered itself, weapons retracting, heads bowed toward the wounded alien beside him. Daniel's breath caught. They're obeying you." "I am Queen," the alien said quietly. The word echoed in his mind louder than the storm ever had. A queen, not a diplomat, not a lost survivor, but the central mind of the entire alien force. The being humanity had been trying to eliminate since the first day of the war. He staggered back, shock crashing through him. "You said you wanted peace." "I do," she answered. But my generals do not. They hid me when I chose to end war. They damaged me, left me to freeze, so conflict would continue. Pieces fell into place with terrifying clarity. The endless attacks, the refusal of alien forces to retreat, the lack of any true negotiations. Their own queen had been silenced by her own kind. And humans? Daniel asked, his voice shaking. Did we know? Her eyes met his. Yes, she said. Another memory tore through him. A briefing room. Human commanders arguing over intercepted alien signals. A single phrase translated over and over. Cease hostilities. Daniel remembered standing in that room, insisting they respond, insisting they attempt contact. He remembered being escorted out by security. They erased me, he whispered. Because I wanted to help you. You were first human to listen, the Queen said. Both sides chose war over trust. The hunters remained kneeling, waiting for her command. She lifted one trembling hand, and they powered down completely, becoming silent statues in the snow. Why tell me now? Daniel asked. Why not order them to kill every human and end it? Because that would prove them right, she said softly. War survives when fear leads. Her strength began to fade again, the silver glow dimming. If I die, she continued, my generals keep control. War continues for generations. If I live, I end it. Daniel looked at the circle of kneeling machines, then at the dying queen, who had once trusted him enough to learn his name. The truth was heavier than any weapon he had ever carried. Humanity had erased the chance for peace. The aliens had destroyed their own voice for it. And now the only person who knew the full truth was a medic no one would believe. His oxygen alarm blared. Final warning. You're asking me to save the most dangerous being in the galaxy, he said. She shook her head weakly. I am asking you to save the only one who wants it to stop. In the distance, human dropships pierced the storm, weapons hot. Targeting the alien signatures surrounding him. Daniel realized the next few seconds would decide the fate of two civilizations, and every side would see him as the enemy. The dropships roared overhead, their cannons charging with a rising metallic scream. Targeting beams painted the kneeling hunters in sharp red lines. To the pilots above, this was a perfect kill zone, a cluster of enemy machines gathered in one place. To Daniel, it was an execution waiting for an order. Call them off, he said into his comms, his voice raw. Do not fire. I repeat, do not fire. Static answered him. Then Command's cold reply. Step away from the hostiles, medic. You are compromised. They're not attacking, he shouted. There's a cease command. We have their leader here. She wants peace. Silence. Then a new voice, lower, familiar from too many briefings. Your file says you were treated for memory instability, the officer said. Drop the weapon and move away from the target. Daniel almost laughed. Memory instability. That was the lie they had written to bury the truth. He looked down at the Queen. The silver glow around her armor was fading fast, her breath shallow, her eyes struggling to stay open. If they fire, she whispered, both sides lose last chance. The targeting beams intensified. Daniel made his decision. He removed his helmet. Freezing air tore into his lungs instantly, stealing his breath, burning his skin. Alarm screamed as his suit registered lethal exposure. He stepped forward, placing himself directly between the dropships and the Queen, arms spread wide. This is Daniel Reyes, medical officer, he said, forcing his voice through the open channel so every ship could hear. You want to fire. You fire through me. Stand down. Command barked. That is an order. No, he replied, his teeth chattering violently. For the first time, it isn't. Behind him, the Queen lifted her hand with the last of her strength. The kneeling hunters powered on, But instead of raising weapons, they projected a wide field of soft light that expanded outward, enveloping the battlefield. The dropship's targeting systems flickered, unable to lock on to anything within the glow. "Peace signal," she murmured. "Broadcasting to all." A new sound filled the air, not mechanical, not human. A layered tone that carried across every frequency, translating itself into words inside Daniel's combs, inside the dropships, inside every listening channel on both sides. "Cease hostilities. War is ended." Human pilots hesitated. Weapons powered down one by one, confusion replacing aggression. Across the frozen plain, distant alien units halted their advance, turning toward the signal-like plants toward sunlight. The Queen's hand fell. The silver light collapsed. Daniel dropped to his knees beside her, the cold already numbing his fingers. "Stay with me?" he begged, pressing the last thermal pack against her armor. "You said if you live, it ends. So live." Her eyes opened one final time, clear and calm. "You remembered," she said softly. "I didn't," he choked. "But I'm not letting you die again." A faint smile touched her cracked lips. "Promise kept," she whispered. Her pulse vanished. For a moment, nothing moved. The battlefield stood frozen, human and alien forces alike locked in stunned silence. Then the hunters around them activated, not as weapons, but as carriers. They lifted her body gently, forming a protective circle. A transmission burst across all channels, this time from the alien network, translated with perfect clarity. "The Queen has fallen under human protection while ending the war. Hostilities are concluded." Command tried to respond, to regain control, but the pilots did not fire. Soldiers on both sides lowered their weapons, uncertain how to continue a fight that had just been declared over by the very beings they were meant to destroy. Daniel collapsed into the snow, his vision fading, frost creeping across his skin. The last thing he saw was one of the hunters placing a small device against his chest. Warmth spread through his suit as emergency heat surged back to life. A recorded message played in his comm, her voice, steady and alive, preserved before the final broadcast. "You once asked what I was," she said. "I am the voice that chose trust. Now you are too." Rescue teams found him hours later, alone on the silent battlefield. The war was already being called off. Official reports claimed a mutual ceasefire, the result of simultaneous strategic decisions. No mention of a queen. No mention of a medic standing unarmed in the snow. But among the soldiers who were there, a different story spread quietly. They spoke of the day the guns went silent because one human refused to see a monster, and one alien chose to speak a name. And long after the ice melted and the battlefields were abandoned, Daniel kept the small silver fragment the hunters had left with him, a piece of her armor, warm to the touch. A reminder that peace had not begun with treaties or weapons laid down. It had begun with a promise no one remembered, and a choice no one could erase.